Hey everyone, I've got a little treat for you today. This footage has been sat on my hard drives for over a decade and I finally got around to doing something with it. Partly recorded in 2012 when I met with Robert Waggoner, and later in 2013 at the Gateways of the Mind convention in London, where I caught up with Falcon Acamesis, William Buhlman and Jurgen Ziewe. These guys are some of the world's most respected experts in the field of lucid dreaming and out-of-body experiences, and here they share some of their valuable insights into these amazing states of consciousness. I hope you enjoy.
So lucid dreaming is becoming aware within the dream that you're dreaming, knowing it's a dream. At that moment when it happens, sometimes it's the most euphoric kind of feeling. You feel like you have all your abilities, all your inner senses activated simultaneously. It's one of the most incredible experiences that anyone can have.
A lucid dream is basically a dream in which you are aware that you're dreaming. And the interesting thing is that you can actually manipulate the dream and make it into anything you want it to be. For example, what I've discovered early on is that you can take charge of it and then attain an extra level of awareness by focusing on your environment during the dream state. And that led me to the exploration later on into a higher dimensional realities.
An out-of-body experience is essentially the separation of consciousness from the body, where an individual feels that their complete awareness is existing totally separate from their physical body.
It feels incredibly freeing, and I feel it's one of these experiences that really does help liberate your mind from that belief that you are just a physical being. And in that moment, you are free, and you are free to expand your awareness into what is your heritage beyond physical reality, who and what we really are.
Most of us become lucidly aware by either suggesting to ourselves before we go to sleep that we'll be more critically aware, and when we see something strange, we'll realize we're dreaming. Or conversely, we in the dream see something totally unusual, something impossible, and at that moment we realize, oh, this must be a dream. But we have to bring our critical awareness into the dream state in order to achieve lucidity. And so that's why I use the suggestion, tonight in my dreams I'll be more critically aware, and when I see something strange, I'll realize I'm dreaming.
Well, I've never actually, or rarely I would say, actually induced an OBE, because it was never my intention, or I never set out to induce OBEs. They happen to me spontaneously as a result of regular meditation. And but once I had the experience, I became very curious about the phenomena. So I followed it up as an extra means of gathering information about other dimensional realities.
An out-of-body experience is induced through many different kinds of techniques that have been around for thousands of years, actually. Out-of-body exploration is not something new. It's been talked about in biblical text and throughout history. But in a more modern terms, I teach about 40 different techniques or methods to initiate out-of-body exploration. Some of them are tactile, some of them are more visual. It depends on let's just say, what resonates with the individual. Where are their talents?
OBEs and lucid dreams are usually most effectively triggered with a directing, sort of you're directing the experience yourself. So it's a self-induced experience. Many techniques for doing this sort of stuff, but for me, the classic, which is the mind awake, body asleep technique, which was really sort of promoted by the Monroe Institute, where you just literally keep your physical body still for maybe a period of an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours upwards, and try to remain conscious during that time, and you are just touching into very subtle phenomena and learning that these phenomena are cues for you to be able to go and extend your awareness beyond physical reality. So for me, it's just the simple techniques work the best. Keep the body still and keep the mind awake.
So at first, when you become lucid, you have to take care about 4 important points. The first thing, you have to modulate your emotions. Don't get too excited or you'll pop out of the lucid dream. The next thing, it helps to enhance your awareness. You might want to rub your hands together to kind of activate your kinesthetic senses, or you might want to shout out, greater clarity now, more lucidity now. Then the final thing is you want to maintain your focus, because I'll tell you, in a lucid dream, you're still going to see some amazing things. If you lose your lucidity because you become entranced by things in the dream, then you've lost it. So you got to maintain your focus. You got to remind yourself every 15 seconds, this is a dream. I'm dreaming this. And from that point, you can begin to plan your own experiments and go forward.
Difficulties, I think, in my case, didn't actually arise out of the practice of meditation, which is what I do, and the OBEs that came out of it, they were always seen as something very positive, and rarely as anything negative. I soon began to realize that it was consciousness which was actually directing the experiences, and I began to listen to what actually consciousness was trying to tell me, and the places it took me to, what it was telling me about the greater reality, really. So I always saw it as a very positive experience, even if it was slightly under negative circumstances.
Generally, people experience, if the difficulties that people experience are generally related to perception and mobility. Many people that begin to have out-of-body experiences find that they're having difficulty in perceiving their environment. It's often very dark. The second, probably most prevalent issue is their mobility. They find themselves to be very heavy, and they have difficulty in moving around. All of these issues, these 2 major issues, can be solved simply by bringing more conscious awareness into your energy body or into the experience. And you do this through awareness now, or a technique I used to teach for decades actually, clarity now, where these techniques will help to bring more conscious awareness into this energy body, and this in itself will solve the issues related to it. Because most people are unaware that it's all about conscious awareness, being present in each experience we have, whether it be the physical world or the non-physical. And all perception capabilities are created by the mind. So what we have to work on is bringing more clarity, more sharpness, more awareness into each experience we have by demanding it. And awareness now is a very, very effective tool for eliminating issues.
Well, there's a lot of fear-based stuff when it comes to doing this sort of exploration. For me, in my philosophy, we were something before we were human. But mostly through many incarnations, we've forgotten that we are this something more than human. And so some of the difficulties arise in the belief systems that we hold about what's on the other side. And because the mind is very powerful, thoughts, feelings create things. And then you have reality, which is extremely thought responsive, as William Buhlman would say. And with those things coupled together, you can create your own nightmares on these other levels, and that can then create blockages with people not wanting or having the desire to explore. So for me, one of the biggest sort of barriers is fear.
So as we go deeper into lucid dreaming, we realize that fear is an invisible fence. If we don't deal with our fears, they'll contain us, they'll constrain us from going deeper. So the way that we deal with our fears is by realizing within a dream that we can't be harmed, and going forward to address our fears. If we go towards emotion instead of running away from it, if we respond to it with love and compassion and project acceptance and kindness on it, oftentimes our fears will evaporate, they'll disappear, or they'll shrink down. So whenever you meet a negative figure or something in a lucid dream, wish it peace, send it compassion and acceptance, and see what happens. I'll tell you, normally it'll shrink, it'll disappear, it'll fall apart. So remember, peace and compassion are the way to make it through the fears of lucid dreaming.
Well, fear is something I have never actually encountered myself. The only thing I have encountered are slightly negative environments I found myself in. But the moment I became lucid or aware, I never actually experienced fear as such. There were a couple of occasions in my past experiences where I felt I was subjected to external influences, but I could quickly control them simply by the realization that I was actually in charge of the experience, and I could end the experience or change the circumstances of the experience.
Fears are generally something that is eliminated as you go. Fear is generally a lack of knowledge. Let's face it, people are afraid of things they don't realize or know. And there's this unconscious fear of harm may come to you. After many people have a few out-of-body experiences, they actually realize that they are immortal. They realize they exist beyond their body, and the fear begins to dissolve away.
Overcoming fears to me comes through doing your own independent research, not just believing everything you come across. So you have to learn how to keep your mind and your heart open for this journey. And humor really helps a lot. I think if we don't use humor as part of this process, then we allow the fear and we don't grow past that. And I think as humanity, when we experience the biggest, our biggest potential, fulfilling our potential as humans, we have to learn to explore beyond fear once again. That can be through our diet, that we're, the sort of the reality we're digesting on a daily basis, through reading newspapers, looking at the mass media. There's a lot of fear there in these things. So it's best to maybe cut those out of the diet for a temporary period of time, to stop focusing so much on gossip, to stop having conversations where initially you're focusing on anything that can be deemed that fear-based stuff. Once we start to hold an energy about ourselves where we're not limiting ourselves and limiting other people by creating fear, we can explore beyond that again. So to me, it's limiting the diet that is in our daily lives of the fear-based stuff in the first place.
So in flying, what I suggest to people, instead of trying to flap your arms like a bird or swim through the air like a international Olympic swimmer, that won't get you very far very fast. What you should do instead is this: concentrate on where you want to be. So if it's the top of a castle, concentrate on that very top post. Then imagine yourself there as if you're feeling it, then let go and tend yourself there, and immediately you'll find yourself just zipping there, flying through the air, just like Superman. We're not flying so much by physical means. We're not flying at all with physical means, actually. We're flying with mental means. So we learn to manipulate the mind, and in that way, we learn to experience the lucid dream space in a whole different manner.
Well, flying is the first thing I usually do in order to ascertain whether this is an out-of-body experience or not, because it feels so real. And because you can't, at the time it happens, you can't really discriminate for sure whether it's actually an experience you have in your physical body or not. So the reality test I usually do is by trying to see if I can lift off the ground. If I can do that, of course, I've got certainty that I'm in a dream or in an out-of-body experience. But it's really important. For example, one couldn't simply jump off a building without inducing a fear element, because you are absolutely not certain what kind of reality you're in, whether you're in a physical reality or in an out-of-body reality. So that the flying test is always a fundamental test I found useful to perform.
Many people during out-of-body experiences have flying experiences because it's just enjoyable. And the key is to try to bring as most conscious awareness present in the experience as you can. Also, another thing that people especially at the beginning, when you're just proving this to yourself. A lot of people enjoy walking through walls and putting their hand through walls just to see if they can do it. It's a way of confirming to yourself the reality of the experience.
I think the freedom that we can express within lucid dreams and out-of-body experiences are very profound. Being able to fly within an environment where, you know, it is either of your own creation or something that you're expanding your awareness into is phenomenal. Although I would caution that sometimes we enter what we could label a consensus reality, a shared reality space. And although we might think that on the inner planes, they have more knowledge or more awareness than us, this is not every case. Sometimes you come into some of these afterlife communities and they don't fly. And as an out-of-body explorer, I've noticed sometimes where I will make the attempt to fly in these environments, and telepathically I'll receive a message to say, they don't fly in these environments, they don't fly in this community, so you might want to stay to the ground, otherwise you'll frighten them. So although it can be fun and exciting, also sometimes comes great responsibility with these journeys.
So as you go into lucid dreaming, you'll oftentimes find yourself interacting with dream figures. And I want to tell you that dream figures are actually quite varied. Some of them will not respond to you. They'll turn away or they'll give you gibberish for a response. Others will give you some possible responses, but sometimes, here's what's strange, you can actually interact with lucid dream figures who are equally aware as you are. And in those cases, you'll tell them, hey, I'm dreaming this. And then the dream figure will respond, well, wait a second, how do you know I'm not dreaming you? And then the dream figure will, or the lucid dreamer will say, well, look, I can fly. And then the dream figure will say, well, look, I can fly too. And so in those moments, you realize that you've met a dream figure that's as consciously aware as you are, and that you've met someone, some psyche, some part of your psyche that has as much consciousness in that state as you do. So be aware that dream figures vary. There's nothing to be concerned about, but be nice to your dream figures and they'll be nice to you.
Yes, I found quite early on, after a few years after I had these experiences, that I got stuck up to a certain level and I couldn't move on. And I knew I wanted to explore greater realities. I was always confronted by a literal barrier, which almost felt like a physical barrier. So one day I called out for help, and the next time I had the barrier, I was actually so frustrated that I became quite depressed, and then I was suddenly taken away to a place, and I met there a Chinese guide or a master, and he took me, he became my sort of dream guide, if you like, for want of a better word. And he then trained me, literally, giving me various tests and various riddles, and taught me some sort of symbol languages, subjected me to certain types of emotions with which I wasn't familiar, and after 6 months I was able to get into much higher states of consciousness as a result of this.
Many people during out-of-body experiences encounter helpers, or let's just say guides or loved ones, and it's especially after the first few years, when you become a little more, let's say, comfortable in your energy body, people begin to open up to the potential of, let's say, their surroundings a little more, and they begin to have contact. I write about, for instance, my contact with my mother who had died, and my uncle and other people. These contacts are very natural, because once you leave your body, we are actually entering a dimension where they are already present. So the contact scenarios are open to us, and they're quite common.
Spiritual helpers, guides, guardians, angels, whatever you want to call them, you can label it whatever you want, but there is a clear level of help that is always available to us on these other levels, and including here on this level of reality. And I find when we do transparently have an opportunity to communicate and receive mentorship from these beings, it can be very life enhancing, if not completely life altering altogether. Some of my favorite experiences are those in the company of beings of such great evolution, where they're supporting and holding a space, a planetary space in some cases, and to be in their company and to be reminded of our fuller heritage, not just as humans, but as non-human consciousness beyond the belief systems of humanity.
So in a lucid dream, if you want to change the scenery, there's a number of things you can do. If you feel like the lucid dream is coming to an end, you might want to start spinning, which is something that Stephen LaBerge suggested. And oftentimes when you stop spinning, a whole new dream scene will appear and you'll be aware in a new environment. Or also sometimes, like if you want to go to Paris in a lucid dream, instead of trying to fly there, which might take hours, just tell yourself, when I turn around, I'll see the Eiffel Tower and the rest of Paris in front of me. Then turn around. In the lucid dream space, we're manipulating the mind. If you can expect it with enough intensity and enough intent, you'll be surprised what you can do as you begin to fold space and go through space.
Well, there are two types of out-of-body experiences, which is the way I see it. One is where you are in a subjective personal field, which is by most people described as a lucid dream, where you're actually aware or awake in a fantasy world of your own making. If you are in this type of environment, you can easily manipulate the environment and change the surrounding around you. But it's not always quite clear whether you are in a personal field or in a consensus field. And I found out at one stage when I was found myself in a cartoon city where I was almost certain that I was in a personal fantasy field, when it turned out that I actually was in a location where people had created a cartoon city. And I found out because I met the two guys who were in charge of this elaborate three-dimensional movie they were creating, which was absolutely mind-blowingly interesting. And they then showed me around and showed me the way they produce things, and that was a very intensive experience, which I shall never forget.
Out-of-body navigation is a skill that many people develop over decades. It took me, to be quite frank, it took me decades to develop my navigational skills, and it's something you're always working on. You do it through awareness now, I feel. You travel within yourself. Many people feel that they're traveling to an external location, which is true, but there's a connection between the inner and the outer worlds that we're always working with. So the first thing I learned is the difference between a consensus reality, which is reality created by group thought, and a non-consensus reality, which is one that is not, and one that I can alter and change. This gives you at least a feedback. But generally speaking, the further inward you go within the universe, the more thought responsive the environment will become. And this is one way that you can judge to some degree the location that you're, or at least the inner dimensional location that you are experiencing in any given moment.
Changing scenery, navigating to new realms. To me, one of my favorite techniques is to just sit or stand in a meditative sort of way. So maybe sit in lotus position while you after you've achieved lucidity, full lucidity, focus on raising your vibrational energy. Then maybe have a thought. One simple thought can suddenly propel you into a whole new reality, or it can change a scene. But I find for a lot of people, it's for some reason, maybe it's a challenge because we limit ourselves sometimes with our beliefs. And people will sometimes use techniques where there's a door and they'll say, okay, if I open the door, then there will be something there. Because they're basically taking away the fear of, oh, if I just say scenery change now, maybe it won't change because my belief doesn't support that. Whereas I might already believe that there's already a scene change behind a closed door, and if I open the door, it's there. So we can use simple techniques such as closed doors or pretending that the scenery behind us will change and that will happen. But I find to really help, with these scene changes, or to move into different environments, first get yourself into a relaxed meditative state on another level of reality. Start to raise your vibrational energy just by thinking about doing so. And this in itself can help with that process of changing scenes or moving to other levels.
I often ask lucid dreamers to think of this. Do they really control the lucid dream? When you fly through the wall and you get to the other side of the wall and now you see a castle and a white horse, who put that castle and white horse there? How did it come into being? If you control the lucid dream, then how do you explain that? Or for example, if you become lucidly aware and you talk to a dream figure and say, "Hey, I'm dreaming you," and the dream figure responds, "How do you know I'm not dreaming you?" In those unexpected moments, how can you say that you control the lucid dream? The lucid dream obviously doesn't behave as you expected. So that's why I feel that we really don't control the lucid dream. The metaphor I use is, the sailor does not control the sea, neither does the lucid dreamer control the dream. The sailor has to relate to everything, the boat, the waves, the wind, the current, all those things it's relating to. And so does the lucid dreamer. The lucid dreamer has to relate to their own ability, the other dream figures, the larger awareness that it's involved in. It's a matter of relationships. So you influence the lucid dream, but in all honesty, you really do not control the lucid dream. And you'll find that out the next time something totally unexpected happens.
Well, I found out that if you are in a personal field environment, you can easily control it with your intent. If you are in a consensus environment, that is much harder. But it is easier to control if you work from a level of expectation. For example, if you are expecting something to happen, then it is easier to materialize something. For example, let's say you are thirsty or you're feeling thirsty, then almost the expectation that you need to quench your thirst will materialize a bottle of water or a glass of beer or wine or whatever is on your mind. There are various other ways of manifesting things, which I described in more detail in my book, Multidimensional Men. But it is much harder, and it takes a bit of practice to actually materialize, because when you're in an out-of-body state, you usually find yourself in a consensus environment, which is a pre-created world, very much like our physical world. And for a short period of times, you may be able to change some detail, but if the detail was created by a consensus mind, then after you've taken your attention away from it, the environment will revert back to what it was before. So you can actually test by looking at these aspects of the out-of-body experience, whether you are in a personal field or whether you are in a consensus out-of-body experience.
I think through a lot of the research that's been done on the subject of controlling environments, it's been shown that at best what we're doing is we're directing our experience within these environments. I think it's Stephen LaBerge or Robert Waggoner, I can't remember which of the two, but they mentioned in one of their books how you feel that, oh, okay, you become the lucid dreamer and I'm now controlling, this dream. But as you're flying, let's say an example, you're flying through the dreamscape and you make a directional change. So you've controlled the direction you've gone in, but what is still creating that scenery around you? So it goes to show that there are processes beyond your control. Even if you do change the scenery, what is then rendering that scenery? Is it purely just your thoughts from a conscious sort of level, or is there something deeper taking place? So controlling the environments is a challenge, even for, on this level of reality. If I was to say to you, make this wall behind me vanish, for most of us, we wouldn't experience that because we have deeply embedded beliefs that that wall is solid and is going nowhere.
So in lucid dreaming, there's vast potential for spiritual development. You can work through your own shadow issues, the parts of yourself that you ignore, deny, repress. You can seek out incredible experiences. You can shout out to the larger awareness, hey, let me experience unconditional love. Show me divine grace. And if you're on a deep spiritual path, you can begin to understand the absolute nature of the mind, the true nature of the mind. When you go deep enough and when you understand enough, oftentimes you'll begin to have experiences of light and sometimes geometric forms. And it's not just light like the light that you turn on, it's like the light of awarenesses, the light of awareness. This will be awarenesses that communicate with you, that have something to say to you, that give you energy or experiences beyond the norm. So I encourage everyone to use lucid dreaming as a tool to investigate the spiritual nature of things. By using this tool, you can go beyond your own projections, beyond your own thinking, and realize that you exist as part of a larger awareness.
Well, I always regarded out-of-body experiences and lucid dream as a mere byproduct, because my quest all my life was to find reality and to find the truth behind everything. And that was always a goal, and I only saw out-of-body experiences as signposts of my consciousness or super consciousness to educate me, to teach me, to show me certain things which would help me on my quest to find the greater reality or what is behind the appearances of everything. And meditation, of course, is a tool to do that, and it takes a little bit of practice, but you can actually enter a totally different state of consciousness by applying yourself in the right way.
I feel the most important benefit of out-of-body exploration is our ability to have a profound spiritual experience or experience our higher self. We have the ability through out-of-body exploration to experience our entire multidimensional self and also experience our higher self. In one of the experiences that I had, I found myself shooting through layers of color. This is almost impossible to describe with words, but I was shooting through layers of colors, and suddenly the end result was, and I felt like I was being stretched across the universe, and the next thing I know, I was floating in this sea of light. No form, no body, just pure awareness floating in this sea of white light, and I felt connected to everything. And this is, I feel, one of the great potentials of out-of-body exploration that's rarely talked about. It gives us that ability, I feel, to experience our true self beyond form, beyond the astral world, beyond even the mind, because we exist even beyond the mind as true beingness.
What lies beyond the dream? I think that really, no matter which philosophy you're coming from, for me, I do feel that this is one big dream. Daydream of God, daydream of the universe, daydream of the force. Whatever label, is easy for you to apply. At what level does it end? That's like saying belief systems. Do we ever get beyond belief systems? Do we ever get properly beyond duality? I think it's possible. Personally, I've experienced void states which have made me think I was, and then a thought will arise and a creation will come. I think the form-based realities of the astral planes, the physical matter reality that we're experiencing here on the earth plane, there's a lot of belief system built into it. The illusion goes deeper than we know.